mentioned, I'm going to talk about 50, or as the Romans would put it, L, but I'm not going to talk about L much. Where better to start than in a subway station in New York named after 50th Street, which is where it's situated. But take a picture quickly or else you might get your camera nicked. And on the next slide, you'll see where the station is. It's on 50th Street, and it's conveniently got several entrances and exits, depending on where in Manhattan you want to get out. So it's a really useful station if you ever happen to find yourself in New York City. But I'm not actually going to spend much time in the US at all. I'm going to think about other ways of looking at 50. A little closer to the mic. Yes, that's a nice exit. This was what you last saw was what the Romans did, but that's too late. Now you can think about what you can do in 50 seconds. While you can drink a drink in 50 seconds, I can't do a slide in 50 seconds because it'll have gone past. But keep on drinking your drinks. And in 50 minutes, you can almost watch an entire episode from iPlayer, but it'll probably be slightly longer than 50 minutes. But it's still quite a large chunk of time, and I won't have enough time to do one slide. So we can think about, what about in 50 hours? Well, look, if you've got a nice contract that says how many hours you have in your week, that's longer than your usual week. And I certainly wouldn't want to be at my desk for 50 hours in a week. But some people, unfortunately, do have to work that number of hours in a week. But hopefully, when you're thinking about 50 days, you've had some time to take a bit of a break and go and do a bit of shopping, maybe buy some shoes, like at this shoe shop. If you don't know where it is, look at the pedestrian crossing. If you may not want to buy shoes, of course, hopefully in 50 weeks, I mean, you're coming up to a year, it's time for a foreign holiday somewhere. I would recommend this location. Maybe you've been there, maybe you haven't, but of course there's many other places that you may want to go to as well. I'm going to think about 50 in other ways now, thinking about age, depending on the year that you were born in, life expectancy, this is a sort of estimate of how long you will live, changes. So people who were born in 1950 have different life expectancy than people who were born in the year I was born in. I won't tell you what that is, but I'm now thinking about 50 in different ways. Where was I when I was 50 years old? I was in the hospital I was born in. And where was I when I was 50 days old? I was in this city shown on this slide. I'm not going to ask you where you were, but I may ask you afterwards if we have time. What about when you were 50 weeks old? Well, some good friends of mine were nearly celebrating the first birthday of their child. I'm hiding the privacy of the child in this picture, but you can see the first birthday cake. What about 50 months old? Well, I knew where I was when I was 50 months old because I was just over 4 years old, and I had fun playing on the top of a Land Rover, shown here. I'm a bit over 4 years now. What about when you were 50 years old? Well, I realized some of you were saying, well, I'm nowhere near that yet, but unfortunately, I've been past that age, and I took this photo when I was 50 years old. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but you may be able to guess from some features of the train on it. Getting to these sort of years can be difficult, as these people, who I took a photo of, were finding, although I was in an easier location. And other things which we thought were finished in less than 50 years, such as the Cold War, which you see here, seem to be coming back to haunt us some years later. And it's a bit of a problem. And I can't really predict what's going to happen, but hopefully it will get solved at some point. But we can. This is why we need to look to the future. And some people can say that in 3 years we can get to Mars, but when that will happen, we don't know. But there is the suggestion that once we get to Mars, we'll live there permanently, and we'll certainly be there for 50 years. And what we know is that if this is the 50th Liverpool Ignite, that even though it's still sort of winter-spring, that we're driving towards the summer. But the end of my talk is nigh, as shown on this banner here. As you can see, I've hidden the date, but the end is definitely nigh. So at this point, I have to say goodbye.